Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the star of our show, Terry.
Hello, everyone. I am your host, Terry, and I want to welcome you back to The Music of Me, the podcast where we celebrate the songs, shows, and stories that live rent-free in our hearts. Let me tell you, today's topic has been living rent-free, eating all the snacks, and hogging the remote in my brain for weeks. We're talking about R&B girl groups, the powerhouse voices, the harmonies so smooth they could butter your toast, and the stage presence that made you want to grab a hairbrush and form your own trio in front of the mirror. And don't even try to tell me that you didn't do that. These are the women who set trends, broke records, and defined entire eras of music. From the elegance of the Supremes to the funky, fearless vibes of TLC, to the fierce anthems of Destiny's Child. And let's not forget En Vogue, with those harmonies that made you stop whatever you were doing just to listen. And even today, the legend continues with groups like Chloe and Halle, who are carrying the torch for a whole new generation. So grab your favorite throwback playlist because we're about to dive into the world of sequins, sass, sisterhood, and some of the most unforgettable songs ever made. All right, so before Destiny's Child had us all shouting, say my name, there were the Trailblazers, the women who laid down the blueprint for what an R&B girl group could be. We're rolling it back to the 1950s and 60s, when harmonies were tight, dresses were glamorous, and a perfectly synchronized sway could take you straight to the top of the charts. Let's start with the Shirelles, often credited as the first major all-girl group to break through. Their song, Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow, was groundbreaking. And by the way, that song was written by Carole King. I love that song so much. Not only was it gorgeous, but it also had one of the first times we heard young women singing openly about love, relationships, and vulnerability from their perspective. Basically, the Shirelles walked so every other girl group could run in high heels. Then came the Ronettes. Oh yes, the bouffant hair, the eyeliner wings sharp enough to cut glass, and that unmistakable anthem, Be My Baby. Produced with Phil Spector's famous Wall of Sound, their music filled every inch of the radio and made you feel like you were standing in the middle of the world's most dramatic teen romance. And we cannot skip over Martha and the Vandellas. With hits like Dancing in the Street, they brought the party and protest energy all rolled into one. Their music had this joyful urgency that made you want to grab your friends, hit the pavement, and move. What all these groups had in common was their ability to shape vocal harmonies into something both elegant and electric. They weren't just singing pretty notes, they were crafting a style, an attitude, and a cultural shift. Without them, there would be no TLC chasing waterfalls, no En Vogue freeing their minds, and definitely no Beyoncé telling us we're survivors. These early pioneers paved the road, laid the tracks, and probably even polished the stage for every R&B girl group that came after. Now, if we're talking about girl groups, we cannot, let me repeat, cannot skip over the queens of Motown, the Supremes, one of my favorite R&B girl groups from way back in the day. These ladies were basically the Beyoncé, Rihanna, and Taylor Swift of their time all rolled into one glamorous trio. Motown Records had this magic formula. Polish the sound, polish the image, and suddenly you had crossover stars who could dominate not just R&B charts, but pop charts too. And the Supremes, they perfected that formula. With Diana Ross front and center, they had the voice, the charisma, and the style that made America stop and pay attention. We're talking about hits like Stop in the Name of Love. And yes, I know you just did that hand motion in your head. And You Can't Hurry Love. These songs weren't just popular, they were everywhere. By the mid-60s, the Supremes were literally rivaling the Beatles in chart success. That's right, Motown's girl group was going head-to-head with the Fab Four. But it wasn't just about the music. Their look, coordinated gowns, elegant moves, and the kind of poise that made you sit up straighter, helped break down racial barriers on national TV. They showed the world that Black women could be glamorous, powerful, and mainstream icons. And here's the thing. The Supremes didn't just open doors, they kicked them wide open. They proved that girl groups weren't just a passing fad. They were a force. Without them, the R&B girl group legacy might not have become what it is today. So when you hear Beyoncé singing about being a survivor or TLC rocking bold styles with attitude, remember, it all traces back to a trio in matching gowns, standing under the bright Motown spotlight, teaching the world to stop in the name of love. All right, so fast forward a couple of decades from the Supremes, and we land in the 80s and 90s, a time when R&B girl groups weren't just making music, they were making statements. This was the golden age. The voices were bigger, the harmonies tighter, and the fashion, well, let's just say a lot of us are still trying to figure out how to pull off leather vests, baggy pants, and crop tops all at the same time. Let's start with En Vogue, the epitome of sophistication and powerhouse vocals. And this group is another one of my favorite R&B girl groups. I remember having a CD of their music. These ladies gave us Free Your Mind, still one of the most socially powerful songs of the 90s, and Don't Let Go, which, let's be real, is impossible to sing along to without straining your vocal cords. And believe me, I've tried. En Vogue has this elegance mixed with attitude that made them unforgettable. Then came SWV, Sisters with Voices. And oh, did they deliver on that name. Their hit Weak is still one of the ultimate slow jams of the 90s. The harmonies were so smooth, you almost forgot they were singing about being so in love they could barely stand up. SWV were masters of that silky, emotional vibe that just wraps around you. And of course, we cannot talk about this era without the juggernaut that was TLC. I love TLC. T-Boz, Chili, and Left Eye. This trio had it all. Socially conscious lyrics, playful energy, and unforgettable style. Waterfalls wasn't just a song, it was a whole movement, teaching us to think deeper while also giving us a melody that sticks in your head forever. And then came No Scrubs. Let's just say, if you were a scrub in the late 90s, TLC had your number, and they were not calling you back. And don't sleep on Escape. Discovered by Jermaine Dupri, these women gave us classics like Just Kickin' It and Who Can I Run To. Their harmonies were rich, their style was laid-back cool, and they were the kind of group that you wanted to hang out with and sing along to at a sleepover. What made this era so golden was the variety. Each group brought something different: glamour, silkiness, edge, or pure soul. And they all shared one thing. They gave young women voices, anthems, and the kind of songs that made you feel powerful, vulnerable, and confident all at once. This was the era when girl groups weren't just background acts. They were front and center, running the charts, setting the trends, and proving that sisterhood and soul could change the music game. By the time the late 90s rolled into the 2000s, R&B girl groups were on a whole new level. This was the era of bold confidence, killer choreography, and anthems that basically became the soundtrack to every slumber party, breakup, and glow up. Front and center, of course, was Destiny's Child. I mean, talk about a group that defined a generation. With Beyoncé, Kelly Rowland, and Michelle Williams, these ladies weren't just singing, they were discovering life lessons. Say My Name had everyone suspiciously side-eyeing their phone calls. Survivor became the rallying cry for anyone going through a tough time. And Bootylicious? Let's just say they added a whole new word to the dictionary. Literally. That is cultural impact. Then there were the MTV era groups like 3LW and Danity Kane, who came straight out of Diddy's reality show Making the Band. Their debut single, Showstopper, had everyone convinced that they too could strut into a club like it was a runway. Spoiler, most of us just tripped over our heels. And in today's scene, we've got groups like Chloe and Halle who've managed to honor traditions of R&B girl groups while putting their own fresh spin on it. Their harmonies are otherworldly. Their style is modern, but still plays homage to the groups before them. And songs like Do It show just how timeless the girl group formula really is. Plus, they are the protégés of Beyoncé, which kind of feels like destiny fulfilled. Pun absolutely intended right there. What's clear is this: the torch keeps getting passed on. From Motown era to the golden 90s to the streaming age, girl groups continue to evolve, adapt, and inspire. And whether they're giving us empowerment anthems, silky ballads, or bops that make you dance around your kitchen, they keep proving that harmony, sisterhood, and a little attitude never go out of style. Now, let's be honest. When it comes to girl groups, it's never just about the music. It's the whole package. The looks, the attitude, the choreography that made you want to grab your friends and start a group of your own in the school cafeteria. Think back to the Supremes with their glamorous gowns and flawless stage presence. They set the tone for girl group fashion being just as iconic as the songs. Fast forward to the 90s, and suddenly you've got TLC rocking oversized overalls, crop tops, and condoms as accessories. Yes, Left Eye literally wore one over her eye patch. That's commitment to a look. They turned fashion into a political statement, into fun, into them. And Vogue brought elegance with sharp suits and sultry dresses, proving girl groups could do polished just as well as edgy. Destiny's Child took it one step further with those unforgettable matching but not matching costumes. Sometimes coordinated, sometimes straight out of your auntie's fancy sewing kit. Remember the Survivor-era camo outfits? You just knew those weren't bought off the rack. And then there's the cultural influence. These groups weren't just shaping music, they were shaping conversations. They gave young women confidence and style inspiration, whether it was SWV rocking baggy jeans or Chloe and Halle bringing futuristic chic. And let's be real, a lot of today's TikTok trends wouldn't even exist if these groups hadn't first made synchronized dance routines the coolest thing in the world. Fashion and music went hand in hand, and R&B girl groups set the trends that everyone else tried to follow. They made empowerment look as good as it sounded. All right, everybody. I know I usually sneak the fun fact segment into the middle of the episode, but today I thought, why not change it up? Put it closer to the end to keep us all on our toes. First up, the Supremes were basically chart royalty. In 1964 alone, they scored 5 #1 hits. 5. That's the same year the Beatles were running wild across America. So yeah, Diana Ross and company weren't just competing with the boys, they were beating them at their own game. Go Supremes. And here's one that'll make you go, wait, what? TLC is still the best-selling American girl group of all time. Yup, Waterfalls, No Scrubs, Creep, those hits racked up more than 65 million records sold. Basically, if you didn't own a TLC CD in the 90s, were you even living in the 90s? I know I had one. Oh, and let's talk about Destiny's Child. Before they became the trio we know and love, they started out as a 6-member group called Girls Time. They even competed on Star Search. They didn't win, but you know what they say. Losing once doesn't hurt when you're destined to run the world. Here's a fun one. En Vogue was once offered the theme song for Friends. Yep, the famous I'll Be There For You could have been theirs. But they turned it down. Imagine how different that show would feel if we were clapping along to En Vogue instead of the Rembrandts. And get this, SWV's Week almost didn't happen. The group actually didn't like the song at first and didn't want to record it. But they did, and now it's their most iconic hit. It just goes to show, sometimes the songs you're unsure about end up defining your career. Finally, a little modern twist. Chloe and Halle recorded much of their early music in their living room and posted it to YouTube. That's how Beyoncé discovered them and signed them to her label. Proof that sometimes all you need is a laptop, a dream, and maybe some forgiving neighbors. See, these groups weren't just making music history, they were leaving behind stories, surprises, and plenty of reasons for us to say, wow, I didn't know that. So after all this, you might be wondering, what's the legacy of R&B girl groups? Did their impact just stop once the spotlight moved on? The answer is a big, sassy, hair-flipping no. Take today's pop scene. Groups like Little Mix, Fifth Harmony, and the newer UK group Flow, they've all borrowed the blueprint from R&B girl groups. Tight harmonies, empowerment anthems, and a mix of friendship and fire that makes fans feel like they're part of the squad. Even K-pop groups like Blackpink have taken inspiration from the girl group model perfected by Motown and the 90s. And then there are the solo artists who started in girl groups. Beyoncé obviously took things to stratospheric levels, but she's not alone. Kelly Rowland, Dawn Richard from Danity Kane, and even LaToya Luckett from the early Destiny's Child days, girl groups have been a launchpad for powerful solo careers. Culturally, the legacy is even bigger. Girl groups gave young women, especially young Black women, a voice, a style, and a presence that said, we belong here and we're going to shine. Their songs still pop up at weddings, karaoke nights, and let's be honest, in our showers when we think no one's listening. So the next time you're belting out a girl group anthem, just remember, you're not just singing along, you're keeping alive a tradition of sisterhood, empowerment, and music that shaped generations. And there you have it, our journey through the unforgettable world of R&B girl groups. From the elegance of the Supremes to the socially conscious swagger of TLC, to the fierce anthems of Destiny's Child, and the fresh energy of Chloe and Halle, these groups didn't just sing harmonies, they defined eras, broke barriers, and gave us soundtracks to live, love, and dance to. For me, what makes girl groups so special is that mix of sisterhood, power, and fun. Whether they were rocking matching gowns, baggy jeans, or camo outfits, they taught us that music is more than a catchy tune. It's about connection, unity, and unapologetic expression. Now, before I go, a little teaser for next week. We're shifting gears, but keeping it in the family. If today was all about the queens of R&B, next time we're going to be talking about the kings. Yes, male R&B groups. From the smooth harmonies of Boyz II Men to the dance floor energy of groups like New Edition and Jodikai, it's going to be just as fun, just as soulful, and maybe even a little nostalgic. So until then, thanks for hanging out with me here on The Music and Me. Share this episode with a fellow music lover and keep those harmonies alive. And as always, sing like nobody's listening, except maybe your neighbors. Also, before I go, about a month ago, I did an episode dedicated to my niece who was about to have a baby, and I never did tell you all that she did have a perfectly healthy baby boy, and he's about a month old now, and he's so cute, and I'm so happy to be a great aunt to him. If you want to listen to that episode that I did dedicated to my niece about baby songs, I will link it in the show notes. Meanwhile, I'll see you all next week, and peace out, everybody. This has been the Music and Me podcast. Subscribe now so you don't miss a beat.